All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start. Welcome along to the Solargain Battery Launch Event. Thanks to so many people coming out. It's great to see so many people here and coming out to see the battery products that we've got on display for you this evening. I'll give you a little bit of a background on the battery launch event. So we decided late last year that we were going to host some sort of event for batteries, purely because of the amount of inquiries that we were getting from people. So we felt like every phone call or email or inquiry was, can I have batteries, can I do this, giving us all these different questions. So I guess the purpose of tonight is to go over some fundamentals of batteries and make sure you guys are all aware of those, answer all those basic questions, and just try and set a really realistic expectations, realistic expectation. There'll be some prices and things like that as well, and obviously we're going to run around and go over some of the different technologies in the room. And as you've already seen, there's plenty of resources. We've got a lot of technical people have come over from various companies as well. So my name's James Baverstock. I'll be doing the presentation. So get started now. So I'll just run through what we're going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to do a quick Solar 101. So we are going to look at the basics of solar power first, just so it does pave the way into the storage application. So it is good to touch base there. Secondly, we'll move into the applications for storage. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the different things that you can do with batteries, because there's a lot of different applications for them. We want to make sure that everyone's across what they all are. Thirdly, we're going to look at some of the specifications of the batteries that you need to be aware of. Okay, so power, energy, cycles, depth of discharge. We're going to look at all those different things so that you guys can have a better idea of what you need to look for when you're looking at battery technology. We're going to have a look at some of the different storage options that are available. So obviously we've got a lot of different products on display, so I'm going to give you guys some basic information about that. And that will give you'll then have the opportunity to go around and ask some specific questions of the manufacturers that have come over. And finally, just going to look at some future considerations as well. So I've already spoken to a couple of people that are in the process of building and things like that, are planning on doing batteries down the track. So we will touch base on that a little later on as well. All right, so just quickly, we'll go through a little bit of a Solar 101. So most people are aware of how solar power works. Sun panels and sunlight creating DC electricity. In the house, obviously you don't use DC electricity, you use AC. So that's why we come along with an inverter, and the inverter takes the the voltage from the panels that's DC, converts it into 240 AC for your home, and then your appliances use it throughout. Now, you use the power from the solar panels first, okay? So that when you've got solar power, that's your primary source of electricity. Then if you need more, you grab more from the grid. So if you need 4,000 watts and you're producing 2,000, you take another 2,000 from the grid to top it up. Okay, and obviously at night when you're not producing anything, you're drawing all from the grid. Any excess electricity that you produce is then sold back to your retailer. And you get various credits and stuff associated with that. So yeah, but like I said, the idea, you want to try and consume as much of your own power. That's definitely the most financially beneficial way to go about it. So some of the pros with solar and reasons as to why it's been so popular, obviously because it's very cost effective. So if you're planning on being in the house for a long period of time, it does add up to do solar power, and that's one of the reasons why the uptake has been so strong. It's obviously clean, sustainable energy, so that's a big one moving forward for the environment. It's now become a very proven technology as well, so this isn't something new anymore. This is something that's been around for quite some time and is very proven. A lot of people are worried about the rising energy costs as well. So by putting solar panels on your roof, you're less susceptible to that. And that's some of the reasons why it has been so popular. But like with everything, there's been a couple of drawbacks. First of all, with solar, we only obviously produce power while the sun's up. So we can't produce solar power at night, not that I'm aware of anyway. We can't increase or decrease output as we need. So in the middle of the day, we may need more power or less power. Well, solar power doesn't work like that. We can't just turn it on harder or get more power out of it. We've got what we've got. So we can't increase or decrease the output to suit what we need and when we need it. It is grid dependent, so if you don't have any grid power at the moment, you lose your solar power in most residential applications. So that's a drawback as well. So obviously, how do we solve all these issues? And the reason why everyone's here tonight, obviously with batteries. So batteries are giving us the opportunity to solve a lot of these problems. and we're going to run through some of the technologies and applications for them tonight. So first up, we'll run through some applications. So the first and probably the most common thing people ask us is, I want to store the excess solar that I produce during the day and use it at night. So that seems like the most straightforward thing, and it is. You're going to save roughly 18 cents per kilowatt hour every time you do this. So that's the difference between what you would normally pay your retailer and what they would credit you for every time you can store it and use it yourself. It doesn't work out to be a humongous saving. So if you look at it on a yearly basis, 5 kilowatt hours, if you're using all of that for a year, so 100% utilisation, you're using all 5 kilowatt hours, you're only going to save $330. And with an 8 kilowatt hour, about $520. Now, if you have a look at some of the costs, and I will get to the costs a little bit later on, but I'm sure a lot of people have looked around, it does cost a lot more than what you save, and the payback period from doing this alone probably isn't there yet. Now, that's not to say that it always will be the case. We're certainly, as the technology comes down in price, it will start to become a little bit more cost effective, but as it stands at the moment, it's probably not yet enough to justify it on its own. But with battery storage, there's actually a few other things that we can do with it. Okay, so you can get the most of time of use tariffs. So a lot of people are on time of use tariffs where they pay different rates for power at different times of the day. And I'll elaborate on an example doing that later on, so you can see how you can make the most of it. But in a nutshell, you're buying power at off-peak times to prevent yourself using it at peak times. So some of these off-peak times can be 13, 14 cents per kilowatt hour. Some of the peak times can be about 50 cents. It just depends on the time of use tariff that you go for. And there's always different time of use tariffs popping up. So with battery storage, you can actually have a look around and start shopping for what would be the best option for you, because this is a really good way to save money. If you've got a 35 cent per kilowatt hour difference between your on-peak and off-peak rates, that's a saving on the same size battery system of a lot more. So you can see with the 5 kilowatt hour system, you're saving $650, 8 kilowatt hour, you're saving around $1,000. Now it is a lot harder to do this, but it's certainly a really good option if you can do it, because it is much better in terms of return on investment and your financial savings from the system. Now obviously another big thing with batteries is we can do backup or off-grid power. So there is a big difference between backup and off-grid, and I will quickly touch on that. So backup is essentially that. So if the power goes out, you've got some power to supply to some really important devices. Whereas off-grid is when we're actually talking about a scenario where the grid might not be an option. So it could be in a remote area where we can't run a power line out there, or it could just be just not very reliable power. So there is a big difference between the two. Backup is more what we'll be looking at residentially. Just because you have batteries on your home does not mean you have backup, okay? It's like when solar first came out and a lot of people were putting solar panels on their roof thinking if the power goes out, I'm sorted. It's not the case, and it's also not the case with batteries as well, but batteries do make it possible, okay? So it just needs a little bit of extra stuff, and when we look at some of the individual components later on, we'll talk about that a bit more. Backup power, can't put a number on it, so how much is having your fridge and your lights on a backup circuit worth? I'll leave that one up to you. Some people like to put their essential loads like fridges, lights, some people might have their Wi-Fi, other people might have their security systems or medical equipment on a separate load, so on a separate circuit. Another thing that you can do with battery storage is selling excess energy at peak times. So if you've got some energy available at your house and someone down the street needs it during a peak time, some companies are actually offering you the ability to sell the power back during this peak time. And they're going to give you a premium for that power. So rather than what you would normally sell it back to your retailer for, you can actually sell it back at a premium. So having battery storage enables you to do that. Okay, you've got the power on site. The guy two houses down might need power. Rather than go back to a power station, he can grab it from the guy down the street. And there's companies setting up in order to do exactly that. So that'll give you a premium for the power that you feed back to the grid. That's probably a couple of years away, but there are some setups with it at the moment. but it's definitely something moving forward that can certainly earn you a lot of money with your battery systems. So we'll touch on some battery specifications as well. So I'll just quickly go over some fundamentals. So power, not a physics lesson here, but it just talks about how much you're doing at once. So it's measured in watts most commonly in your house. So you'll see a lot of your devices, your vacuum might be 1,000 watts. Your light bulb, this is a 50-watt light bulb. This is a 5,000-watt air conditioner. So most things actually you buy in terms of watts when you're looking at the appliance. So it tells you how much power that you're using, or that it uses. So solar systems are also referred to in terms of power as well. So you might buy a 3 kilowatt system, a 5 kilowatt system, a 6 kilowatt system. So this is just how we categorise the systems. That's not to say it will always use that or will always produce that, but that's sort of the maximum capacity of that particular device or the solar power system. Energy is a little bit different though. So we buy and sell energy, not power. And energy is power with the time brought into the equation. So just because something consumes a lot of power doesn't necessarily mean it's a high energy user. So the kettle's a really good example. The kettle will use 2.4 kilowatts when it's running, which surprises a lot of people. But because it doesn't run for that long, the energy from it that it consumes isn't a great deal. You compare that with something like an air conditioner, which uses a lot, 5,000 watts. You run it for hours and hours and hours. That's why it uses so much, because not only is it very powerful, but you run it for a long period of time. I'm sure everyone getting their summer power bills will start to see that if they haven't already. So just remember, you buy and sell energy, not power, and it's important to make the differentiation, particularly when you start to look at storage in your house, because it can catch you out on occasion. So I'll just give you just a quick overview of just some different devices. So 50-watt light bulb doesn't cost you much. 300-watt television, in an hour it's going to use not even half a kilowatt hour and cost you about 7.5 cents. Kettle, like I said before, if it was to run for an hour, there's 2.4 kilowatt hours on your power bill, which would be 60 cents. People are paying about 25, 26 cents for every kilowatt hour of energy. Hot water systems, so hot water, they're a big guzzler at 4,800 watts, 4.8 kilowatt hours. Not uncommon for those devices to run for about 3 hours a day. So that there's essentially over 12 kilowatt hours. So on your bills, it'll actually tell you what your average consumption is per day. That can be quite a costly one. So that's looking at a standard electric storage system. So moving along, so again, why is power and energy important when you're looking at storage systems? So with your solar power, so your storage systems, they're going to have different power and energy ratings. Now, just because something has a lot of energy in it doesn't necessarily mean it can actually meet the power that you need. So if you have a look at something like a backup scenario, so you might think, all right, I've got this 3,000 watt device that no matter what happens, if the power goes out, I'm covered because I've got a backup system. Now, even if the battery's full, if your battery can only put out 2,000 watts, you're not going to be able to cover that load. When the power goes out, you'll actually lose it because you don't have the power. You might have the energy in the battery to do it, but if it doesn't have the power to meet what that device or devices require, then you're going to be caught short. A classic example, and I've had a few customers actually ask me this question, I just want to put on some batteries so that I can cover my air conditioner at night. That's a very common one that we're getting already, and we're obviously only in infancy. The issue with that is, for example, my air conditioning unit will use 5,000 watts when it's running. So most of the batteries don't actually have the power output to meet that. So for example, if a battery can put out 2,000 watts, then I'm going to still need another 3,000 watts from the grid. So this concept of my batteries were going to cover my air conditioner doesn't necessarily always hold true. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're looking at power and energy. Okay, and generally when we purchase batteries, we're looking at kilowatt hours or usable kilowatt hours. I'll get to that a little bit more in a sec. So another feature of batteries that's important is cycles. Okay, so the batteries will have different cycles. Obviously, the more cycles, the better. A cycle refers to a complete charge and discharge of the battery, so that would be one cycle. It can be comprised of multiple smaller cycles as well. So 2 half cycles could give you a full cycle. Just depends on how you use the battery. Now, this is important because the more cycles you have in your battery, the more you can use it, okay? It does also give you an idea of how long the battery will last. So if you buy a battery and it's got a really high storage capacity, but it's only 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 cycles, well, it's not going to last very long, and that's something you've got to keep in mind. Other technologies are getting close to that 5,000, 10,000 mark. So even though the capacities might not be the same, because the cycle life's a bit longer, it may still be the better option. Going back to an example we talked about before with time of use tariffs. So being able to use more than one cycle can be quite effective when you look at a daily scenario. So the time of use case at home, I'm actually going to use mine. I'm on a tariff whereby winter, between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m, I pay double for electricity. Between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m, the same thing happens again. But from 9 p.m. and 7 a.m, I only actually pay half price for power. So I can use my batteries and higher cycles to make it more effective in this time. So what I would do in this particular case is with my batteries, I'll charge them up at night. Okay, so at night I'm only paying 13 cents for my power, charge up the batteries as much as I can. Then in the morning, 7 a.m. kicks in, stop doing that. All of a sudden my power is now double the cost. So rather than use the power from the grid, I'm going to use the power from the batteries. So that's going to get me through my morning load, and I'm using one cycle of the battery there. Then 11 o'clock comes, I've got a solar system. The solar power system is going to charge up my battery and also cover all my load, so I don't have to worry about power through that period. Come 5 p.m, my batteries are charged. Same thing happens again. Now I'm going to run off my batteries to get through that particular peak time. So in this particular scenario, we've used 2 cycles in one day to get a lot more out of the battery. So when you're shopping for different battery technologies, keep the cycles in mind, because the cycles gives you an idea of how much you can actually save. And if you can't do more than half or one cycle, then that's something you might want to look at, especially when you've got a lot of technologies that comfortably can do 2 cycles per day. So it's definitely worth factoring into the equation. Depth of discharge is another one. So that's another specification of battery. It's measured in a percentage, and it just talks about how much of the battery that you can use. Okay, so traditionally batteries were mainly an off-grid, and there was engineers involved in all that kind of stuff. Residentially, it's something I think people will move away from. But it does refer to how deep you can drain the battery. So if you've got a 6 kilowatt hour battery at an 80% depth of discharge, you're looking at 4-point-something kilowatt hours of usable capacity. Okay, you can't really drain your batteries completely. There's always got to be something in there. But this is where you get this maximum capacity versus usable capacity. Okay, so your maximum capacity doesn't factor in the depth of discharge. Usable capacity does. Okay, and a lot of battery manufacturers now are moving towards talking about usable capacity, because ultimately that's really what you're after. I had a classic case of a customer of mine I sold a system to, sent me an email with this battery attachment. And look at it, it's really good, you can store 12 kilowatt hours and it only costs this much and it looks really pretty. But I went down the page and it comes with a 5-year warranty and it's got 50% depth of discharge. So over 5 years, I can't use a full cycle in the day, and my 12 kilowatt hours is actually 6 kilowatt hours. So these are little things that you've got to watch out for when you're shopping for batteries and all that kind of stuff. Depth of discharge, cycles, capacity, and all that kind of stuff that comes with batteries. So moving along to some of the storage options. So at Solargain, we're putting them into a few different categories, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them tonight. So the first I'm going to talk about is AC coupled solutions, and then I'm going to talk about hybrid inverter solutions as well, to give you guys just an overall view of how these solutions work. So the first one is AC coupled solutions. So with AC coupled solutions, you'll find that most people already have, that do want to do battery backup, have got an inverter and solar panels already installed. So what the AC coupled solution does is on the AC side, so between the inverter and the house, it just connects a new unit with its own inverter and its own batteries. Okay, so it's very easy to retrofit into any existing solar power systems that you might have. In fact, you don't actually need a solar power system. You could just add this to your house if you wanted to. So just running through, so it is a very easy retrofit. It's a low-cost retrofit. With this particular option, you can charge with power from the grid, which is important as well, because some of the other solutions don't let you charge from grid power. They only let you store power from the batteries. But this particular option will give the ability to buy power at cheaper rates and store it in the battery. Backup power is possible with AC coupled solutions as well, so you can provide power in an outage. And like I said before, it is independent of solar. Basically what you really need is the battery controller and obviously the battery itself. Okay, so this is a really popular one for people that are looking to retrofit solar into their homes. Hybrid is another emerging one. The first thing you'll notice, obviously, it's a lot simpler, not as many devices. As the name would suggest, you've got the one inverter that's doing both things. So you've got an inverter running the solar panels, and you've got an inverter running the battery, or the same inverter running the battery. So there's definitely some benefits in doing it this way. You've got the one unit, so everything goes through the one device. It is actually AC and DC coupled, so it's the same AC coupled as before. But it also has the ability to do DC coupled features as well. So for example, you could actually send the power from the panels directly into the battery. The benefit of that is by doing it that way, you're not converting the solar panels power into AC and then back into DC to store it again. So it's more efficient. You're putting it straight into the battery without doing that conversion a couple of times. So you're saving a few percent on each conversion there. It is a little bit costly to retrofit because you would essentially be replacing your inverter with this particular approach. But if you're looking to get a new system, this is definitely an option for you. You can always replace your inverter, or you can add the hybrid on its own as well. So you do have options. They do come with some really amazing features as well, the hybrid inverters. And like I said, we'll touch on that, particularly when we look at the Fronius solutions later on. And you make sure you get a good one, because one of the issues with the hybrid inverter, it's the single point of failure. Everything goes through it. If you lose that, and believe it or not, we've seen a lot of failed inverters, you're losing everything. You're losing your storage, you're losing your solar, you're losing all of that. So yeah, definitely worth doing a little bit of research into the particular model that you're getting. All right, so I'll touch on our range of storage solutions. So I'll look at the LG Chem first. Then I'll look at the Fronius solar battery, which is at the stage here, and I'll look at the Fronius energy package as well. And I'll also finish with the Enphase AC battery. I'm also going to give you some pricing with these particular units as well, just to give you guys an idea of how much it's going to cost to get you into these solutions. So first up is the LG Chem. So this is one of the most popular ones going around. Usable capacity of 5.7 kilowatt hours. So the max is a little bit higher, but the usable is 5.7. An NMC chemistry for the chemists amongst us, but you can have a chat with the manufacturers about a little bit more detail on that later on. 6,000 cycles at 90% DOD. So that 6,000 cycles is good. Gives the ability over a 10-year period to do nearly 2 a day. Okay, so a nice high cycle life there, which is what you're after. You can expand, so one of the photos coming up will show you what it actually looks like. But basically, you can actually add 2 expansion packs to this. So if 5.7 is not enough, they do have some more options as well. It does come with the 10-year warranty as well. It is a very proven technology, like I mentioned. Okay, so sold in Germany, sold in Japan, very prominent in Australia. LG is a very large lithium manufacturer, so it's a very prominent technology. They've got over 20 gigawatt hours worth of manufacturing capacity for batteries, which in batteries, sort of comparatively speaking, is a lot. So yeah, they're a really prominent manufacturer. The leading electric vehicle battery supplier, so this is just talking about supplying the batteries for electric vehicles. They've got over 400,000 electric vehicles in the field. So if you're after a proven battery technology, this is certainly right up there. Okay. That's, as you can see, with the expansion packs put in. So with the LG Chem, it's compatible with low voltage hybrid inverters or most battery control units, so you can retrofit it into your house or incorporate it with a hybrid inverter. Something like this, you're looking at around about the $6,500 mark just to do the battery on its own. If you want to do the inverter as well, obviously you can do that, a little bit extra there. We've actually got a package, a 6 kilowatt package, and you're looking at around about $13,000 for something like that. That includes the solar panels, that includes the hybrid inverter, the batteries, installation, all that kind of stuff. So that gives you a rough idea with price, and it's available now. So that's a very popular one, very competitively priced. We've already installed some around. So yeah, it's available now, and definitely one of the options that we've been pushing lately in terms of battery storage. Now the second option that we've got on display tonight is the Fronius solar battery. Okay, so the Fronius solar battery, Fronius have been supplying their products for quite some time. This is their battery picture, but right there, you might as well look at that as well. You're looking at between 3.5 to 9.5 kilowatt hours worth of usable energy. Okay, so that's usable, not maximum capacity. The maximum capacity is a little bit high. LiFePO4 chemistry, so if you want to have a chat with the manufacturers about that, a little bit different to the LG Chem. 8,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge. Okay, so 8,000 cycles in a 10-year period is comfortably more than, what's nearly 2 a day, comfortably more than 2 a day, so you've got plenty of ability to use the battery throughout. Like I said, you can customise the size to suit, so I'm sure Rod will go through it later, but you actually, when you buy it, they put the batteries in the side, and depending on how many you put in there, depends on the size of it. So as you can see from the unit, plenty of capacity there. Expandable warranty, so I think it comes with 5 as standard, but you can expand that as well if you want to. A little bit more, so this is actually the entire Fronius energy package, so these are all the features of it. So obviously the battery that we've got, and on display as well, so you can see that there's the Simon hybrid inverter. So this is actually a genuine hybrid inverter, connects to both the solar panels and to the battery itself, the battery component as well. And then you've got the smart meter here as well. So the smart meter has been a very popular device. It's actually compatible with all the Fronius inverters that we're selling at the moment. And what it does is it tells the inverter how much power your house is consuming, how much power you're sending to the grid, and it's very useful for people that don't want to do batteries just yet, but actually want to know what they're consuming inside the house. It gives you a lot of really useful data moving forward. The battery, the hybrid inverter depends on it because it needs to know when to store power and when not to store power. So it is essential if you've got the batteries, but you can include that into your just a system without batteries and get some consumption data, which is very useful. So looking at the actual package itself, so the Fronius energy package is backup power ready, okay? And you don't even have to have the batteries. The Simon hybrid inverter is designed to actually use the solar power for backup. Obviously the batteries will make it easier. You do need to add in a couple of extra components and do a firmware update, so that's coming towards the end of the year, but it's capable of doing backup power if that's something that interests you. Very high power output, so amongst a lot of the batteries, the actual power output's quite high, so it will power a lot of those very energy demanding or power demanding devices that a lot of people are looking to power. There's some really good monitoring software that come with it, and I'll show you some screenshots a little later on that enable you to pull out your phone or jump online and have a look and see how you guys are going in terms of your consumption, your production, and all that kind of stuff. And like I mentioned before, it's a hybrid solution. It does enable you to feed the power from the panels directly into the battery, saving on the conversion there. And a big feature of this particular technology is the multi-flow. Okay, so what Fronius have done with their particular setup is they're allowing simultaneous power throw between the inverter, your house, and the battery. I'll give you an example of that. With the inverter, obviously, well, this particular model would be a 5 kilowatt inverter, so it can't put more than 5 kilowatts from the inverter into your house at any one time. But if you've got 8 kilowatts worth of power going into the unit, what it can actually do is send 3 kilowatts into the batteries to store it for later and put 5 into your house. Okay, and that's one of the things that you can do with multi-flow technology. You can charge your battery from the solar power and the grid simultaneously, so it gives you the ability to do that as well. And you can also draw power from the storage and from the panels at the same time. So the guys from Fronius can elaborate on that a little bit more later, but it's definitely a big feature of the technology. To give you an idea, now this is just looking at the battery itself, you're looking at anywhere between 9 and 19,000, very rough sort of prices. They are custom made to order, so you decide what sort of size you need, and they get made in Austria and shipped over. With a full package, so a 6 kilowatt package with the inverter, the smart meter, and one of the smaller batteries, you're looking at around about that 22,000 mark for this complete setup. Okay, so just bear in mind it is a 3-phase setup, so it's actually only available for 3-phase, but the single-phase unit's coming out a little bit later on. Okay. So moving along, the third option that we have here tonight is the N-phase AC battery. Okay, so that's situated up at the back with Kira. It is an example of an AC coupled unit. For those of you walking around early, you may have noticed it is much smaller than a lot of the other batteries. So it's designed to be a little modular unit where you can connect 1, 2, 5, however many you like. It's a very modular approach. LiFePO4 chemistry, like I said, small little units. Okay, so the capacity is much smaller, which you would expect from the smaller battery. Very good cycle life, so if you want to do a couple of cycles a day, not a drama with that particular technology. 10-year warranty as well, which is really good. A few more features. It is very easy to install. Now, I know you guys won't be worried about that, but it does certainly help your install costs and the installers will like it. The only thing you need to get this on your wall is an Enphase Envoy S metered, which I'll touch on in a little bit later. And like I said, it is a very good modular approach and retrofit option for people that have solar power systems and they want to get some batteries. So this is the component that I mentioned that makes it all possible. It's the Envoy S metered, and there's a couple of these up for grabs later on when we start to draw out some prizes. Basically, you install it into your home, and it enables to see the consumption of all of your different devices. Furthermore, if you have an existing solar power system, a lot of which don't have very good monitoring options, it does enable you to attach a little sensor to that particular unit, and you can actually it shows you how much power your old system is producing and how much you're using in your house. Okay? Once you've got this device installed, you can add the Enphase AC battery as you please. So you can add very easily. You can add more panels as well. So you can add Enphase's little microinverters into each panel and add those as well. So it's a very good option if you want to add a lot of things later on. It's part of that modular approach that Enphase is famous for. The apps and the software that come with it are really good. So a complete suite of web apps, phone, iPhone applications, Android, all that kind of stuff. If you wanted to put a device like this in your home, you're looking at around about the $700 mark. It is available now in single phase. Okay? The 3-phase option's available a little bit later in the year, but at the moment we've got the single phase units in, and you can install those into your home right now if you like, and there's a couple of them up for grabs later on. So just going back to the battery, so I'll go over the whole Enphase AC system just quickly. So looking at your how the approach works is you'll have an existing solar system. Doesn't matter if it's Enphase or not, or it doesn't even matter if you don't have solar. You come along and you add in your Enphase Envoy S metered, and then when you're ready, you add your Enphase AC batteries one at a time. If you want to add more later, you can. Everything's built into the little unit. So it's got a little micro inverter, it's got the storage all built in. Just come along, add it on the wall. Okay? Some really good videos about how they add it online. Kira will be around to answer some questions about how it all works. But it's definitely a really good modular option and a really good option for people looking to retrofit as well. Okay? So I will give you an approximate price. It is a little bit early because we're not looking to release these until later in the year. So if you wanted a ballpark, that would be my best guess for now. But we're hoping to do a little better than that. And obviously we will be doing better if you want to do more than one. So we'll be able to do that. Perhaps a 3-pack at 8,000. That's something I'm going to pitch to the managers. And it is going to be available this spring. Okay, so that's when we're looking at introducing this particular product. But like I said, the Envoy S metered is actually available now. Will there be more battery technology options available? Absolutely. And we're always going to be on the lookout for more to bring to you guys. We're already on the lookout for that. A couple of future considerations I would recommend for people looking to get into batteries down the track. So obviously energy independence is coming. So our reliance on the grid is going to be a lot smaller moving forward. So it's time to start sort of planning for that. Okay, and a couple of different things you can do to start planning for that is reducing your consumption. So Australia is actually 13th in terms of kilowatt hour consumption per capita, which is actually quite high. We've raised up that list recently. We're catching America, which is never good. And we've got behind us Germany, Italy, China. So there's a lot of countries quite far below us. So we do need to work on reducing our consumption per capita there. Obviously you can't cover everything. So the remaining you can look to cover with solar power or any other form of renewable energy that should come up in the future. And like I said, preparing for installing batteries, that may include your Envoy S metered, could include a hybrid inverter, smart meters, all that kind of stuff. Okay? So reducing consumption, so there's many different ways you can do that. Solargain offer a few. Obviously I mentioned earlier that hot water systems are a very big consumer of energy. An electric storage hot water system, a standard one, you're looking at a consumption of about 12 kilowatt hours per day. Okay, now that's quite a lot when you look at your power bill. An electric boosted solar hot water system brings you back down somewhere closer around the 5 mark. Okay, so when you look at that on a yearly saving in terms of dollars, it's about $650 per year. So the cost benefits are definitely there, and you're saving 7 kilowatt hours per day. LED lighting, so we've got Ryan's come over from the LED lighting department. He's got some really great products on display. In a sense, essentially, you can replace some of your 50 watt halogens or your other bulbs and stuff with lower wattage lighting products. So there's plenty of products on display. For example, 13 watts compared to 35 or 50 watts. If you change 20 lights in your home that are running for 4 hours a day, that's going to save you $270 per year. Okay, so there's quite a lot of saving to be had. And obviously there's the low replacement costs. You don't have to replace LEDs as often. And there's a lot of cool features as well. And one thing I always say to people as well is knowledge is power. So knowing what your devices consume is really important. I actually have seen people run around turning lights off with the air conditioner running unnecessarily in the background, but they're worried about the lights. So knowing what each device consumes is really important. Okay, you can prioritise what devices you want to turn on and what devices you want to turn off. This is an example of the Fronius setup. So with the smart meter installed, I can walk up to any device in my house, switch on a device, and watch my consumption change. And instantly I know what that device consumes, and I can start doing it with all of my devices. At the end of the day as well, I get a nice little view of what's actually happened. As you can see, my air conditioner comes on at night quite a lot, so I don't use much during the day, but at night my air conditioner is there. With Enphase as well, they have a really good option too. This is how it looks with the new Envoy S meter. So it gives you a very good overview of what you're producing, what you're consuming, and your net energy. And of course, what's every good web service without an app? So they've got an app for iPad and for Android as well. So this really does make it very easy to identify what's using power and how you can most effectively reduce the consumption in your home. Now, I get a lot of people asking me that they're building and they want to know what to do to plan for that. I speak a lot about R ratings in houses, so builders are very big on this. The R rating talks about the ability to block heat transfer. Okay, so one of the biggest expenditures in your house is heating and cooling. So if you can stop hot air coming in summer, and likewise when you heat your house in winter, if you can stop the hot air escaping, you're going to save a lot of money in terms of your heating and cooling costs. If you're thinking about doing backup, you might want to start looking at some of your essential loads and dividing them. Because as I mentioned earlier, you need to have the power available to cover all of your loads. If your house needs 4,000 watts and you can only deliver 3,000 watts in a backup scenario, everything fails. Okay, so what a lot of people and manufacturers are saying, segregate your essential loads. You might have your lights, you might have your Wi-Fi, you might have your fridge, all on a different load, so that when the power goes out, all your other devices, your non-essential ones, are disconnected, but your essential ones continue to run. Okay, so that's something you can do moving forward. And guys, with your roofs, no flues on the north side if you can avoid it. Plenty of space for panels and things like that. You know, some wall space as well. Start thinking about where you could potentially put your inverter and batteries and things like that. I'm designing a house shortly, and I'm actually going to have a little room where I can put all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to have my inverter there, I'm going to have my battery in there, probably my security system, a few other things, so I won't go into too much details just in case. But just to summarise what I've gone through today, so basically the key message here is if you want to look at the future of being a little bit more independent, is reducing the consumption in your house, cover the necessities with solar, okay, and start to learn what each device consumes. And that's going to be very important in knowing how much storage you're going to need moving forward. Okay? Knowing how much storage you're going to need is important because you don't want to get a battery that's too big or too small because you could be paying unnecessarily a large amount of money or not purchase something that gets the job done. And also, if you're definitely going to do batteries, consider investing in a hybrid inverter initially or an Envoy S or some smart metering so you can start to do all these kind of things moving forward. Alright, so our advice, like I said, we call this being battery ready at Solargain, and that's definitely what we're encouraging everyone to do. Okay, so we've even made a little hashtag, Be Battery Ready, which is on the bags that you'll get later on. Okay, that's all for me. I really appreciate you guys coming down. My name's James. If you have any questions about the presentation or the rest of the evening, feel free to come up and ask me. Otherwise, guys, really appreciate your patience in attending the event. I'd invite you now to step around, have a look at some of the products, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks a lot for coming out.